Hello friends, welcome back. I hope you are all doing good. So in our previous class we had discussed about supply under GST. In our today's class we are going to discuss the next topic, section 7 and section 8 we had discussed in our next class. Sir, you started with section 7 only, sir. Sir, you started with 7 only. Please note, for your examination majorly CGST Act is applicable. Only CGST Act is applicable. So CGST Act only you have to study. So now we had started our discussion with section 7, that is supply under GST. Then we also discussed section 8. Sir, what about other sections, sir? What about section 1 to section 6? What about these sections? See, section 1 talks about title, extent and commencement. Title of the act is Central Goods and Services Tax Act. Then it has commenced, it extends to whole of India including the state of Jammu and Kashmir. It has commenced from 1st of July 2017. And section 2 talks about definition. So as and when those definitions are coming, we are discussing those definitions. Section 3 to section 6 talks about the officers who are there under GST law. What are the powers of their officers? What are their roles, responsibilities, etc. So these sections are basically, not saying, there is no direct impact on your studies, on your syllabus. So straight away your institute also has started from section 7 only. Section 7 of CGST Act, which talks about supply, and section 8 talks about taxability of composite mixed supply. Today we are going to discuss a section called as section number 9, which is the charging section of GST Act. Which is the charging section? The charging section of which act, sir? CGST Act. CGST Act 2017. The charging section of CGST Act is section 9. So I think today's video will be a very small video because the charging section is a very small section. In your material, this is the third chapter, that is the charge under GST. It includes charge as well as section 9 as well as section 10, but today we'll be discussing separately. Section 9 will discuss separately and section 10 will discuss separately. Section 9, charge under GST. Now please note, in your institute material, if you see, section 9 and section 10 is a separate chapter. Sorry, it is a same chapter. From exam point of view, what is the weightage of this chapter, sir? Minimum 4 marks, maximum 6 marks. And for this examination, for those who are writing in November, a question on composition scheme can be asked. I personally feel that section 9 and section 10 for this examination, you are going to 100% get a question. For sure, you are going to get a question for 4 marks from this particular chapter. Okay, the charging section. The charging section at the end, once all this thing are done, with respect to GST, I will just from my point of view, what are the important topics by saying what they asked in the previous examination and what are the amendments which are there. Accordingly, I will tell you what are the important chapters with respect to which questions can be asked. Okay. Section 9. Section 9 is the charging section of CGST Act. Section 9 subsection 1 says, subject to the provision of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called as Central Goods and Services Tax on all intrastate supply of goods or services or both, except on alcoholic liquor for human consumption, at such rates as may be notified by the government, not exceeding 20% on a value determined under section 15, and it shall be collected in such manner as may be prescribed and paid by taxable person. It shall be paid by taxable person. Now what is this point telling? Section 9 subsection 1 says, I am going to levy a tax. Section 9 subsection 1 is telling I am going to levy a tax. The tax will be called as what? CGST, Central Goods and Services Tax. When am I going to levy this tax? I am going to levy this tax whenever you are making intrastate supply, whenever you are making intrastate supply of goods or services or both, except on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Meaning all the different types of intrastate supply of goods or services which you make, you will have to pay me CGST, and obviously SGST is there. With respect to SGST Act will talk. Except on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Though alcoholic liquor for human consumption is a goods, you don't have to pay any GST on that. Sir, okay, I will have to pay GST whenever I am making intrastate supply. On what value will I have to pay? On the value determined under section 15. Okay, sir, at what rate will I have to pay? At such rates as may be notified by the government, but whatever rate is notified by them should not exceed 20%, not exceed 20%, and it shall be collected in such manner as may be prescribed, and it shall be paid by whom, sir? It shall be paid by a person called as taxable person. Who should pay the taxes? Registered person Allah, taxable person. Who should pay the taxes? It is a taxable person who has to pay the taxes. Sir, what do you mean by taxable person? Taxable person means a person who is registered or a person who is liable for registration. under section 22 or section 24. Sir, who is a taxable person? Taxable person is a person who is registered or liable for registration under section 22 or section 24. Then, sir, what do you mean by intrastate supply, sir? Oh, sir, tell no, sir, what do you mean by this intrastate supply? Now, please note, intrastate supply. Basically, the definition of inter and intrastate supply is given in your IGST law, IGST Act. Intrastate supply, as per the definition, it states intrastate supply means supply of goods or services or both, where the location of the supplier and the place of supply, the location of the supplier and the place of supply is in same state and same union territory, then I am going to call it as an intrastate supply. However, if the location of the supplier and the place of supply is in two different states, two different union territory, one state, one union territory, or it is a case of export of goods or services, or it is a case of import of goods or services, or it is a supply made to an SEZ unit or SEZ developer, then I am going to call it as an interstate supply. So if the location of the supplier and the place where the supply has been made, they are in same state, same union territory, intra. If it is in two different state, two different union territory, one state, one union territory, it is interstate supply. Whenever there is an intrastate supply, you have to pay a tax called as what, sir? CGST, SGST, and if it is intra-union territory supply, CGST and UTGST. Whenever there is a supply which is made between two different states, that is whenever there is an interstate supply, you will have to pay a tax called as IGST. And I hope you know this. There are totally 28 states plus 3 union territories which are regarded as state for the purpose of GST law, which we saw in our previous class, and there are totally 5 union territories for the purpose of GST law. Meaning, if you make supply only in these 5 union territories, then you will have to pay CGST and UTGST. But there are 3 union territories: Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu and Kashmir. They are regarded as state for the purpose of GST law. So if you make an interstate supply over here, you will have to pay a tax called as CGST and SGST. Then, sir, now payment of tax under GST law. Payment of tax under GST law is basically divided into two categories. One is forward charge, one is reverse charge. Sir, what is forward charge? Sir, forward charge basically means the supplier of the goods or services has to make the payment of taxes to the government. The person who is supplying goods and services is the person who is liable to make the payment of tax to the government. Then, if the supplier has to make the payment of taxes to the government, then it is called as forward charge. Normally, this is what happens. Normally, whenever you go purchase some products, normally that at the time when you are purchasing, you pay some money to that person. That money will also include tax amount. The tax amount will be paid by that person to the government. For example, you come to Priya Sarees. You purchase a saree worth rupees 10,000. Tax rate for saree is 5%. So now when you purchase the saree worth rupees 10,000, I am going to charge 500 rupees GST also. I am going to charge from you rupees 500 as GST. You are supposed to pay me 10,500 rupees. Out of which 10,000 I will keep it for myself, and another 500 rupees which is there, I am going to give it to government. I am going to give it to whom, sir? I am going to give it to government. So this is what this point is basically talking about. This is what this point is talking about. Forward charge. The supplier of the goods and services is liable to make the payment of taxes to government. However, in case of reverse charge, it is not like that. Sir, what happens in case of reverse charge? The recipient of goods and services has to make the payment of taxes to the government. Sir. Example, sir. Sir, recipient of goods and services has to make the payment of taxes to government. What does this mean? Meaning, say for example, I am taking legal services. When I take legal services from an advocate, the lawmaker says that you, being the recipient of these goods and services, has to make the payment of taxes to the government. So in this case, I will have to pay the taxes. Then, sir, what do you mean by taxable person? Taxable person means a person who is registered or liable for registration under section 22 or under section 24. Now, we will go to second subsection, section 9, subsection 2. See, first section says, subject to the provision of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called as central goods and services tax. Meaning, you are supposed to pay tax on intrastate supply of goods or services except on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. But however, please keep in mind what is section 9 subsection 2 telling. What is subsection 2 telling? Subsection 2 says, CGST on intrastate supply of HP man. CGST on intrastate supply of HP man shall be levied from the date notified by the government on the recommendation of council. Now, meaning what, sir? There is something called as HP man. On this HP man, CGST, whenever you make an intrastate supply of this HP man, CGST will not be levied. As on today, it is not levied. But sir, will it be? Will it be levied on a future date? Yes, it will be levied on a future date. That future date will be notified by the government. Sir, what do you mean by HP man? High speed diesel, petroleum crude, motor speed, aviation turbine fuel and natural gas. On these 5 products, GST is not levied as on today. But GST will be levied on a future date as may be notified by the government. Section 9 subsection 3. Section 9 subsection 3 talks about what, sir? Reverse charge. Intrastate supply reverse charge of notified goods and services. 9.3 says CGST on intrastate supply of notified goods and services shall be paid by the recipient of such goods and services under reverse charge. If you are making intrastate supply of notified goods and services, then on that intrastate supply of notified goods and services, the tax is required to be paid by whom? The recipient under reverse charge. CGST on intrastate supply of notified goods and services shall be paid by the recipient of such goods and services under reverse charge. CGST on intrastate supply of notified goods and services shall be paid by the recipient of such goods and services under reverse charge. I am going to notify some goods and services for you. On these goods and services which are notified by me, if there is any intrastate supply which is made, the tax is required to be paid by the recipient under reverse charge. Section 9 subsection 4. Section 9 subsection 4 says, what are these goods and services? We'll see in some time. Section 9 subsection 4 says, again it also talks about reverse charge. It says CGST on intrastate supply of notified or specified goods and services received from an unregistered person by a notified registered person shall be paid by that notified or specified registered person under reverse charge. Beauty. See, both 9.3 and 9.4 are talking about reverse charge only, but there is a huge difference between both of them. 9.3 says, I am going to give you the list of goods and services. The recipient of these goods and services has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. 9.4 says, I am going to give you the list of goods and services. I am also going to give you the list of persons who have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. These persons will have to pay taxes for purchase of these goods only if these goods are purchased from unregistered person. 9.4 says, I am going to give you the list of goods and services and also the list of registered person who has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. This registered person will have to pay the tax under reverse charge if they are receiving the goods and services from an unregistered person. If they are receiving the goods and services from an unregistered person. Section 9 subsection 3 only says, I am going to give you the listing of goods and services. Whoever is receiving it has to pay the taxes. That we'll see. Now, under 9.4 only one thing is specified. A person who is involved in the business of construction has to pay the taxes under reverse charge, and the goods and services which are used for the purpose of constructions are the notified goods and services. Anyways, that is applicable in your final level. Section 9 subsection 5. What is 9.5 telling? Section 9 subsection 5 says, beautiful, supply through e-commerce operator. It talks about what, sir? Supply through e-commerce operator. Now what are they telling? Section 9 subsection 5 says, if you supply notified services through e-commerce operator, if you supply notified services through e-commerce operator, then the tax on that supply is required to be paid by e-commerce operator. Sir, what do you mean by e-commerce operator? E-commerce operator means a person who is owning, operating, managing an electronic platform for electronic commerce. If you are a person who is owning, operating, maintaining, managing an electronic platform, for what purpose? For electronic commerce purpose, then you are called as e-commerce operator. You will be called as what, sir? E-commerce operator. Now what is this point telling? 9.5 telling, I have notified few services. If these services are supplied through an e-commerce operator, the tax on this particular supply which you have made is required to be paid by whom? E-commerce operator. Sir, what are the services notified? If transportation of passenger services, Ola, Uber. So if any person is supplying transportation of passenger services through Ola, Uber, etc., Ola and Uber is treated as e-commerce operator, then in such cases Ola and Uber will have to pay the taxes and not the person who is supplying the services. See, normally what happens in this case, say there is Ola, there is Mr. Dilip, and there is a cab driver. So I take out my mobile phone, I click at my current location and I enter my drop location. The message will go to Ola. Ola will send the message to the nearby cab drivers, and the cab driver is going to come to me and then he is going to drop me. In the present case, I am the service recipient and cab driver is the service provider, correct? He is the supplier of services. Ola is the e-commerce operator. Now in the present case, cab driver is what, sir? He is the service provider. Cab driver has provided the services through to me through e-commerce operator. The cab driver has provided the services to me through e-commerce operator. So in this case, who has to pay the taxes, sir? The e-commerce operator has to pay the taxes. So what are the services notified? Passenger transport services. Then restaurant services. Restaurant services, Swiggy, Zomato. Then accommodation in hotel, in guest house services, so we have OYO, we have Make My Trip, etc. And housekeeping services. In case of housekeeping services, we have urban company. So in these three cases, please note, these are the 4 services which is notified, but in these 3 cases, which 3 cases? Restaurant, then accommodation in hotel, in guest house, and housekeeping services. If the supplier is registered under GST law, if the person who is giving the services, if he is registered under GST law, then the person who is supplying the services has to pay the taxes. Meaning, sir, say for example, say there is a Taj Hotel. Now Taj Hotel Mumbai, I book an hotel room in Taj Hotel Mumbai, correct? I book an hotel room in Taj Hotel Mumbai through, say, OYO or through Make My Trip. I am booking an hotel room through Make My Trip. Now in the present case, if Taj Hotel Mumbai is registered under GST law, then Taj Hotel Mumbai will have to pay the taxes and not the e-commerce operator. Normally in this case, who has to pay the taxes? If I book a hotel room in Taj Hotel, Make My Trip has to pay the taxes because it is a supply through e-commerce operator. However, if hotel is registered under GST law, then the tax is required to be paid by the hotel and not the e-commerce operator. Sir, what if e-commerce operator does not have physical presence in India? Say for example Uber, sir, what if Uber does not have an office in India? Then who will pay the taxes? See, normally in case of these notified services, 4 services, who has to pay the taxes? E-commerce operator has to pay the taxes. However, provided that where the e-commerce operator does not have physical presence in taxable territory, that is India, then any person representing such e-commerce operator shall pay the taxes. If the e-commerce operator does not have physical presence in India, then any person who is representing this e-commerce operator in India will have to pay the taxes. Provided further that if the e-commerce operator does not have physical presence in India and he does not have a representative also, then who will pay the taxes? Then he should compulsorily appoint a person in India to pay such taxes. He will have to appoint a person in India to pay such taxes. Okay, this is all about section 9, but there is reverse charge section 9 subsection 3. There is a notification which gives the list of services which is taxable under reverse charge. Notification number 13/2017. Notification number 13/2017 talks about the services which are taxable under reverse charge. Now please see, charge under GST. Section 9 of CGST Act is equal to section 9 of SGST Act. It is equal to section 7 of UTGST Act. It is equal to section 5 of IGST Act. Sir, how, sir? Now whatever you have studied, similar points are also given in other acts also. Whatever we studied under section 9 is also given in section 9 of SGST Act. Same to same, word to word it is same. Only one small change will be there. What is that small change? Now 9(1) says what, sir? Subject to the provision of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called as Central Goods and Services Tax. Instead of this, they say subject to the provision of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called as State Goods and Services Tax. Please note, SGST, IGST, UTGST is not there in your syllabus, but I am still telling you the provisions of charging section is same in all the different acts. It is same in all the different acts. Only one small change will be there. In CGST Act, it will talk about CGST, SGST Act will talk about SGST, and UTGST Act will talk about UTGST, IGST Act will talk about IGST. So in IGST Act, what will be the change, sir? Subject to the provision of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called as there shall be levied a tax called as Integrated Goods and Services Tax on all interstate supply of goods or services or both, except on alcoholic liquor for human consumption on a value determined under section 15 at such rates as will be notified by the government not exceeding 40%. So CGST 20%, SGST also will be 20%, IGST will be 40%, and shall be collected in such manner as well prescribed and paid by the taxable person. So basically it will be all same. Please note one more thing. Under GST law, sales is called as outward supply, and the tax which you pay on your outward supply is called as output tax. Purchases are called as inward supply. The tax paid on your purchases is your input tax. Then we saw the definitions of intrastate supply, and we also understood the meaning of forward charge and reverse charge. Now please note, normally IGST is twice CGST and SGST, meaning if IGST rate is 5%, that means CGST is 2.5, SGST is 2.5. If IGST rate is 28%, that means CGST rate is 14% and IGST rate is SGST rate is also 14%. So they say that government may collect tax at a rate not exceeding 20%. So in IGST, how much will it be? It will be 40%. Okay, now let us see what are the services taxable under reverse charge. Now this material, the handwritten material, is available on the Telegram channel. You can directly go, you can take it, download it. Most of my students, they take printout of this material and they study from this only, because here examples are also there. This, if you personally ask me, this will be more beneficial for those students who has actually attended my class, because that relevance will be there in the examples which I have given. Okay, let us go to the next point, which is services taxable under reverse charge. What are the different services which are taxable under reverse charge? What are the different services taxable under reverse charge? Services taxable under reverse charge, section 9 subsection 3. Now whenever there is a question which is coming from any reverse charge, section 9 subsection 3, then you should give reference to this notification. As per notification number 13/2017, this on these services the tax is required to be paid by the recipient under reverse charge. Now what are the different services? First is GTA services. If a GTA is giving services to 7 notified persons, then the 7 notified persons should pay the taxes under reverse charge, provided the 7 notified persons, meaning the recipient, should be located in taxable territory. Sir, who are the 7 notified persons? Factory, society, cooperative society, body corporate, registered person, or a partnership firm including LLP, and a casual taxable person. So if a goods transport agency is giving services to the 7 notified persons, then these 7 notified persons located in taxable territory has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Sir, what do you mean by a GTA? GTA means a person who is involved in the business of transportation of goods by road and who issues a consignment note. And who issues a what, sir? Consignment note. That person is called as a GTA. Now please note, factory, society, cooperative society, body corporate, partnership firm including LLP, they may or may not be registered under GST. These people will have to pay the taxes even if they are not registered under GST law. However, a registered person is anyways covered over here. Okay, a registered person is anyways covered over here, and there is one more exception which is given with respect to registered person. Normally registered person means what, sir? A person who is registered under GST law. But however, the lawmaker says in this case, if central government, state government, local authority, union territory, or central government authority or state government authority, etc., if these people, central government department, etc., government department, basically government department and government authority, if these people have taken registration under GST law only for the purpose of deducting taxes under section 51, if they have taken registration only for the purpose of deducting taxes under section 51, if they are not making any taxable supplies, if central government, state government, central government authority or government authority, government departments, etc., if they have taken registration under GST law only for the purpose of deducting taxes under section 51, and if they are not making any taxable supplies, then for them this RCM provision of GTA will not be applicable. Okay, normally registered person has to pay the tax under reverse charge, but if it is government who has taken registration only for the purpose of deducting taxes, then it is not applicable. Then advocate giving legal services to a business entity. Sir, what? Business entity located in taxable territory. Sir, what do you mean by a business entity? Business entity means any person who is carrying on a business. Business entity means what, sir? Any person who is carrying on a business. So if an advocate gives legal services to a business entity, then RCM is applicable. Advocate gives services to Priya Sadis who is registered under GST law. Is RCM applicable? Yes. It is giving services to Harsh who is say not registered under GST law. Harsh, it is giving services to Harsh for his personal purpose, meaning he is not a business entity. In this case, RCM is applicable? No. It is giving to Vanshika Sadis who is not registered under GST law. So business entity services are given by advocate to a business entity. It does not matter whether the business entity is registered under GST law or it is not registered under GST law, RCM will be applicable. So if it is giving, say advocate is giving legal services to a business entity, say Priya Sadis, and the services are used by them for the personal purpose of Mr. Dilip. Services are given to whom? Priya Sadis, but for what purpose? Dilip's personal purpose. In this case also RCM will be applicable. Then arbitral tribunal services given to a business entity located in taxable territory. Sponsorship services given by any person to a body corporate or a partnership firm. This body corporate or a partnership firm located in taxable territory has to pay the taxes. Please note, all the recipients should be located in taxable territory to pay the taxes. Then any services given by government. Services given by government. Government means what, sir? Central government, state government, local authority, union territory. So any services given by government to a business entity, that business entity has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. That business entity will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Please note, services given by government to a business entity. Business entity means any person who is carrying on the business. It does not matter whether you are registered under GST law or not. However, there are 4 exceptions. There are totally 4 exceptions. Basically 4 exceptions which are there is gap. In case of gap, RCM is not applicable. It is never applicable. In case of gap, RCM is not applicable, and in renting of immovable property, some cases RCM will be applicable. See, any services given by government to a business entity who has to pay the taxes, the business entity has to pay the tax under reverse charge. However, in case of renting of immovable property, services given by government or services given by Department of Post by way of speed post, express parcel post, etc., or services in relation to aircraft and vessels inside or outside the pursuance of ports or airports, services by way of transportation of goods as well as transportation of passengers. In case of these services, the RCM provision shall not apply. In case of these services, it is always forward charge mechanism. Always the person who is giving the services. In case of Department of Post, the post office should pay the taxes. Aircraft and vessel, the Airport Authority of India, or say Bangalore International Airport is giving services, then Bangalore International Airport should pay the taxes. Transportation of goods or transportation of passengers. So BMTC is there. BMTC is giving services to some company, then that BMTC only will collect the taxes. So in case of gap service, sir, why do you call it as gap, sir? G for transportation of goods, A for services in relation to aircraft and vessel, post office services, and passenger transport services. So in these cases, it is always forward charge. Then renting of immovable property services given by government to a registered person. Renting of immovable property services given by government to a registered person. This registered person will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Registered person will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Now this is very important. This is very important. I am expecting a question on this particular provision in this attempt. Last attempt they have not asked. This attempt they are going to definitely ask. Or final level, they will ask it for final level, because maybe, okay, anyways, they can ask a question. This is an important amendment, important amendment, important amendment. Let us ignore to whom they are going to ask the question. Renting of residential dwelling for residential use is exempt under GST law. Renting of residential dwelling for residential use is exempt under GST law, except when it is given to a registered person. So that is a new line which is added in your exemption chapter. In your exemption chapter, they have added this line, except when it is given to a registered person. So renting of residential dwelling to a renting of residential dwelling for residential use is exempt. Basically, it is exempt. However, a new entry has been added in your reverse charge, which says if you are renting a residential dwelling to a registered person, then that registered person will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. If you are renting what? Residential dwelling. Whom are you renting this residential dwelling? If you are renting this residential dwelling to a registered person, then that registered person will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Please note, if you are renting a residential dwelling for residential use, then it is exempt except where it is rented to a registered person. So basically, if you see the crux of these 2 points now, renting of residential dwelling, you can rent the residential dwelling to a registered person or to an unregistered person. If you are renting it to a registered person, always reverse charge irrespective of what purpose you are renting. You can rent it for commercial purpose or for residential purpose. It is always taxable under reverse charge. However, if you are renting it to an unregistered person, then I am going to see for what purpose have you rented it for. Have you rented it for commercial purpose? Yes, forward charge is applicable. If it is rented for residential use, it is anyways exempt. Then all the other chota mota points, transfer of development rights, floor space index, or giving a property on long-term lease for a period of 30 years or more by any person to a promoter, the promoter has to pay the tax under reverse charge. Services given, again another important services. Once in the examination also they have asked a question on this. Services given by director of a company to the said company or body corporate. So if the director of the company is giving services to that company or the body corporate, then that company or the body corporate has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Please note, director are basically of two types. One is employee director, one is non-employee director. Employee director not a supply because he is covered under schedule 3. Non-employee director, obviously yes, it is always a supply. The services given by non-employee director to the company will be taxable under reverse charge. Now what clarification the lawmakers gave was, if it is an employee director, normally services given by employee to the employer is not a supply at all. But however, what company started doing, the company started paying these directors tax. The company started paying these directors tax. They started paying the money, for which they started deducting TDS under section 194J. See, if you are an employee, for you TDS should be deducted under section 192. But for some of the directors, they started deducting TDS under section 194J. 194J basically talks about professional services or director's remuneration, etc., sitting fees which you are paying to director. Now in this case, lawmakers saw that company is doing some cheating. If you are an employee, the company should deduct a TDS under section 192. If you are non-employee, then obviously 194J will be applicable to you. Now what clarification lawmaker gave after seeing the practical issues which the companies were doing to avoid taxes. What the director of the company are basically of two types, employee director and non-employee director. See, if you are a non-employee director, always reverse charge is applicable, no question on that. But if you are an employee director, now I will see under which section of income tax law TDS is deducted. For the payment which is made to you, under which section is TDS deducted? Is TDS deducted under section 192? Yes, then that is treated as salary, therefore no RCM will be applicable on that amount. But however, if the TDS is deducted under 194J, then you will be covered under section 9 subsection 3 and RCM will be applicable on that payment which is made to you. Then agents giving services to those respective company, that is insurance agent giving to insurance company, recovery agent giving to banking company, financial institution, individual direct selling agent giving to banking company or financial institution, or business facilitator giving to banking company or business correspondent giving to banking company. All those respective agents giving services to that entities, those entities has to pay the taxes. Members of overseeing committees giving services to RBI will have to pay the taxes. Literary MAD services given to a publisher or a producer, that publisher or a producer has to pay the taxes. What is this literary MAD? Literature services given by a publisher given by an author to a publisher, that publisher will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge normally. But however, author also has an option to pay the taxes under forward charge. For that, what they have to do, if you want to pay the tax under forward charge, then what will you have to do, sir? You will have to take registration under GST law and issue a tax invoice. Then MAD services, music, artistic and dramatic services given by an artist to a producer, then that or music company, that producer or the music company has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Say A.R. Rahman is composing a song for T series, or Anirudh has composed music for say Jailer, he has composed music for say many movies obviously, but then this recently released Jawan, etc. So in this case Anirudh is giving services to say Red Chillies or say that particular music company. In this case, who will have to pay the taxes, sir? The music company will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Security services, important, supply of manpower or supply of security guards, manpower supply services given by any person other than a body corporate to a registered person. That registered person who is taking the services has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Services should be provided by any person other than body corporate. And renting of motor vehicle services given by any person other than a body corporate to a body corporate, that body corporate will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. So basically these are the different services which are taxable under reverse charge. And one more thing, there was also an amendment which was made in GTA services. Normally GTA giving services to 7 notified persons has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Basically, if you see GTA has two options, either to pay tax at 6% or to pay tax at either to pay tax at 5% or to pay tax at 12%. I am talking about GST rate, that is IGST rate. So CGST will be 2.5 and 6. So if the GTA is paying tax at say 5% or 12%. If the GTA is paying tax at 12%, is always taxable under forward charge. Reverse charge provision will come only if GTA is opting to pay tax at 5%. However, now also they say 5% case also that reverse charge will not come if GTA has taken registration and it is issuing a tax invoice. So that small amendment they have made, just like that amendment of author's amendment was previously already there, and there is one newly added point, which is this renting of residential dwelling to a registered person. Apart from that, it is all same in this particular chapter. So renting of motor vehicle, it has an option to pay tax at 2.5% or 12%. 12% always taxable under forward charge. If it is 2.5%, see to whom the services are given, body corporate or others. If it is given to a body corporate, then the service provider is a body corporate, then in such cases service recipient, whether it is a body corporate or others, forward charge. If service provider is any person other than body corporate and he is giving services to body corporate, RCM will be applicable. In all other cases, RCM will not be applicable. So this is all about your revision in respect of this topic called as what, sir? Charge under GST. Now let us see some question in respect of this chapter. State the persons liable to pay tax in following cases. So in the following cases, who are liable to pay the taxes? That is what you are supposed to tell. Service provided by arbitral tribunal to a business entity. Business entity has to pay the tax under reverse charge. Sir, how will I answer this? Now in the present case, obviously it is just one single line answer. You should tell whether it is taxable under reverse charge or not. But in examination, how will I answer this, sir? As per section 9 subsection 3, read with notification number 13/2017, service provided by an arbitral tribunal to a business entity shall be taxable under reverse charge. So this should be your answer. Sponsorship services given by a company to an individual. Okay, sponsorship services given by any person to a body corporate or a partnership firm, then only RCM is applicable. In this case, RCM is not applicable, it is forward charge. Renting of immovable property services provided by government to a registered person, then the registered person has to pay the taxes. See, in the present case, they have not given, they have just told registered entity. So obviously what will you cannot assume that it is registered under any other law. Obviously registered entity means they are talking about GST law. Services provided by insurance agent to insurance company has to pay the taxes. Recovery agent to a car dealer has to pay the taxes. And security services supplied by security personally to a registered person, security services supplied to a registered person, the registered person will have to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Now please see this question. Legal services is received by Jolly, an advocate from, okay, legal services is provided by Jolly, an advocate to Salman Driving Company having turnover of 50 lakhs in the preceding financial year. Who is liable to pay the taxes in this case? Who is liable to pay the taxes in this case? So if legal services are taken by if an advocate is giving legal services to a business entity, the business entity has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. The business entity has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. So who has to pay the taxes, sir? Business entity has to pay the taxes. Now if you know your exemption topic, the exemption topic says legal services given by an advocate to a business entity, then I will check the aggregate turnover of business entity. If the aggregate turnover of the business entity is more than the basic exemption limit for registration, then RCM will be applicable. If it is less than the basic exemption limit for registration, then RCM is not applicable. Sir, what is this basic exemption limit for registration? If the business entity to whom the services are given by an advocate, that business entity's turnover is 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs or 40 lakhs, depending upon what option it is selecting, depending upon where it is doing business. So 10 lakh is the limit for registration for Make My Trip to Nagaland, and 20 lakhs is normally the limit for taking registration under GST law. And if you are exclusively supplying goods and you satisfy some conditions, 40 lakh is the limit applicable to you for taking registration. So in the present case they are telling, say Salman Driving School takes services and its turnover is 50 lakhs. If its turnover is 50 lakhs, obviously it is more than the limit for registration, which is 20 lakhs. Therefore, that Salman Driving Company has to pay the tax under reverse charge. Will your answer change if the turnover of Salman Driving Company in the preceding financial year is only 18 lakhs? So will your answer change if their turnover is only 18 lakhs? Exemption topic says If legal services are given by an advocate to a business entities whose aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year did not cross the limit for taking registration under GST law, that is 10 lakhs in case of Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura and Nagaland, and in 20 lakhs in other states, correct? So if it does not crosses that particular limit, then that business entity need not pay the taxes under reverse charge. That services will be completely exempt. Advocate also does not have to pay, and the business entity also does not have to pay. So if the business entity's turnover is how much, sir? 18 lakh rupees, then RCM is not applicable. Yeah, this is an exam question. Mr. Sanjay of New Delhi made a request for motor cab to super ride for traveling from New Delhi to Haryana. After Mr. Sanjay pays cab charges using his debit card, he gets the details of driver Mr. Jojawar Singh and the cab registration number. Super Ride is a mobile application owned by DT Limited located in India. Application Super Ride facilitate potential customer to connect to the persons providing cab services under the brand name of Super Ride. DT Limited claims that the cab services are provided by Mr. Jojawar Singh and hence he is liable to pay the taxes under GST law. What is your answer? Now what is this point telling? Basically this is actually a final level question. This question was asked for final students, but it is it is a good question, so I have included it in your syllabus also. Now there is a mobile application called as Super Ride. This mobile application is owned by a company called as DT Limited. Now there is a person called Sanjay. He has booked a cab from for going from Delhi to Haryana for which by using this Super Ride mobile app, for which the Super Ride gave information about a driver, Mr. Jojawar Singh. Jojawar Singh came and he dropped to that particular location. Now the point over here is the company says, the company, that is Super Ride company, Super Ride is owned by a company called as DT Limited. DT Limited says that the services are given by Jojawar Singh, therefore the tax is required to be paid by Jojawar Singh. Is it correct? Here who is applicable? 9(5) is applicable. Section 9 subsection 5. IGST law, it is section 5 subsection 5. Who is liable to pay the taxes in the present case, sir? The tax is required to be paid by DT Limited, e-commerce operator, because it is a supply services supplied through e-commerce operator. Then would your answer be different if DT Limited is located in New York? If the service, if the e-commerce operator is not located, it does not have physical presence in taxable territory, that is India, then any person who is representing that e-commerce operator has to pay the taxes. And if it does not have a representative, it should appoint a person in India to pay the taxes. Briefly explain the provisions. I think you know the provisions. ABC Limited is registered with a turnover of 4 crores. It has received the following services from different persons in January 2020. Discuss the applicability of reverse charge in the transactions. Check whether RCM is applicable or not. Services by Department of Post by way of speed post. RCM is applicable? No sir, RCM is not applicable. Services of transportation of goods of ABC Limited paid to Indian Railways. Indian Railways transportation of goods. RCM is applicable? No sir, RCM is not applicable. ABC Limited has availed manpower services from X Limited. So X Limited, you are availing manpower services. Manpower services given by any person other than a body corporate to a registered person. So in this case RCM is not applicable, forward charge will be applicable. If the supplier is Mr. A, meaning the services are provided by an individual instead of company, individual, then yes, RCM will be applicable. Assuming the recipient is registered person. Renting of immovable property services provided by central government to ABC Limited. Yes, ABC Limited, because it is registered under GST law, it has to pay the taxes. ABC Limited paid 1 lakh to independent director. RCM, ABC Limited has to pay the taxes. Government has provided business support services to ABC Limited of for rupees 1 lakh. Government has provided business support services to ABC Limited business entity. So government has given services, any services given by government to business entity has to pay the tax under reverse charge. ABC Limited rented a motor vehicle from XYZ Limited, not paying tax under this. Anyways, it is forward charge because services should be given by any person other than body corporate to a body corporate. Now Tiger Securities Bangalore is a firm providing services by way of supply of security guards to following persons: Katrina Private Limited. So there is a company called as Tiger Securities. This Tiger Securities is a company in Bangalore giving security services to whom, sir? Following persons you are required to tell determine the value of taxable services of Tiger Securities and its taxability assuming the GST rate is 18%. So what will be the taxable? So the services are given by Tiger Securities to Katrina Private Limited, a company registered under GST law. So security services given to a registered person, the registered person has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. So first case it will be RCM, Katrina has to pay the taxes. It is given to Tesla Inc. It is given to a person who is outside India. Normally RCM is applicable only if all the persons are located in taxable territory. So here forward charge will be applicable. Tiger Securities has to pay the taxes. It has given services to Mahila Cooperative Society not registered under GST law. Again forward charge is applicable because it is not registered under GST law. Mr. Atli Kumar from Chennai, a person registered under GST law under composition scheme. Now please note, normally security services given by any person other than a body corporate to a registered person, the registered person has to pay the tax under reverse charge. But however, there are two exceptions over here. Normally registered person has to pay the taxes, but however two exceptions are there. If your government who is required to deduct that, who has taken registration only for the purpose of deducting taxes under section 51, then you don't have to pay the tax under reverse charge. And if you are who, sir? If you are registered as a composition dealer, then also reverse charge will not apply, forward charge only will be applicable. So in the present case, 6 lakhs plus 6 lakhs plus 2 lakhs, which is equal to 14 lakh rupees is the taxable services which is provided by Tiger Securities, because first service is anyways taxable under reverse charge on this 18% GST. $2,52,000 is the total amount. Next, Salman has 3 flats and 1 shop in Galaxy Apartments in Bandra, Mumbai. He has given them on rent as follows. So he has 3 flats and 1 shop in Galaxy Apartments. So Salman has 3 flats and 1 shop. Shop is given on rent to DMart for running business. So it is rented for what purpose, sir? Shop is rented for business purpose. So in the present case, rent is this taxable under reverse charge? So the shop is rented by Mr. Salman for commercial purpose. Is RCM applicable? RCM is not applicable. So in the present case, forward charge is only applicable. Salman only has to pay the taxes. Flat 1 is given to Miss Aishwarya, an actor by profession, for her residence. So if you are renting a residential dwelling for residential use, it is anyways exempt under GST law. Flat 2 is given to Miss Jacqueline Private Limited, a company, Jacqueline Private Limited, which is registered under GST law, and company is using it as its guest house for residence purpose. So it is using it as its guest house for residence purpose. So whoever is going to come to meet her or etc., whatever the purpose it is, she's going to use it. The company is going to use it for guest house purpose. Is RCM applicable in this case? Yes, RCM is applicable. This is the recent amendment. Yes, RCM is applicable. If they have rented the residential dwelling for residential use, but it is given to a registered person, RCM is applicable. Flat number 3 is given to Miss Katrina, a company secretary, which is using it for office purpose. So because you are using it for commercial purpose, it is taxable. And it is taxable under forward charge. Let us see some past examination question. This amendment, when the amendment came, this question was asked. So similarly, this time I am expecting a question on renting and GTA. ICA past exam RTP mock test questions. Mr. Priyam, a director of Sun Moon Company Private Limited, provided services to company for remuneration of 1,25,000. Briefly answer whether GST is applicable in the below mentioned independent cases. If yes, who is liable to pay? Mr. Priyam is a director of Sun Moon Company and the company has paid 1,25,000 to him. Mr. Priyam is an independent director. If he is an independent director, then RCM is applicable. The company has to pay the tax under reverse charge. Mr. Priyam is an executive director and employee of company out of the total amount of 2,65,000, 60,000 has been declared as salary on which TDS has been deducted under section 192 of income tax law. So on this 60,000, no problem at all, not as applied, no GST applicable. However, 65,000 has been declared other than salary for which the TDS has been deducted under section 194J. On this amount, RCM will be applicable. In the following independent cases, decide which person is liable to pay the taxes, if any. You may assume that the recipient is located in taxable territory. Ignore aggregate turnover and exemption available. So directly you should tell whether it is taxable or not taxable. Will transport a GTA paying tax at 12%, transported goods by road of Dilip and Company, a sole proprietor firm, other than specified persons, meaning he is not notified person, which is not registered under GST law. So anyways, in this case GTA is opting to pay tax at 12% and it has given services to an unregistered person, sole proprietorship concern, and I am not a specified person, so no RCM will be applicable. Forward charge will be applicable in this case. Mr. Kamal and Kamal Jain, an unregistered famous author, received 20 lakh rupees as consideration from PQR publications for supply of services by way of temporary transfer of copyright covered under this particular section relating to original work. Who has to pay the taxes, sir? That publisher has to pay the taxes. Publisher has to pay the taxes under reverse charge. Vicky Chadda, Vicky Chadda, an unregistered famous author. This question was asked when the amendment came into picture. After the amendment, Mr. Vicky Chadda, an unregistered famous author, received 3 crore rupees as consideration from Shiv Bhavan Publications located in Indore for supply of services by way of temporary transfer of copyright of ... relating to original work of his new book. He finished his work and made available the book to the publisher but has not yet raised the invoice. He has not raised any invoice yet. Vicky Chadda is of the view that the publisher is liable to pay tax under reverse charge on the services provided by him. Publisher does not concur with his view and is not ready to deposit the tax under any circumstances. So Vicky Chadda says that the company has to pay the taxes, but the company says no, Vicky Chadda has to pay the taxes. Examine whether Vicky Chadda is correct. Answer is yes, Vicky Chadda is correct. The company has to pay the tax under reverse charge because he has not raised any invoice and the services are given by an author to the publisher. Further, if Mr. Vicky Chadda is correct, what is recourse available to Mr. Vicky Chadda to comply with the requirements of GST law, as the publisher has completely refused to pay the taxes? Now, if the publisher has completely refused to pay the taxes, what can be done? Then you take the registration and you collect the taxes. So answer, yes, Mr. Vicky Chadda is correct. GST is payable under reverse charge in case of supply of services by ... and it is given in notification number 13/2017. You just have to write this notification number. You don't have to write the date when this notification came into existence. Therefore, in the given case, the person liable to pay the taxes is company. However, since the company is completely refused to deposit the tax, Mr. Vicky Chadda has an option to pay tax under forward charge on the same. For this purpose, he will have to do the following. He will have to take a registration. Since he is unregistered, he will have to take a registered registration first. Then he needs to declare that he exercised the option to pay the taxes under forward charge, and he will have to tell that I will pay the tax under forward charge, and accordingly he should give that invoice to him. Next question, decide which person is liable to pay the tax in independent cases. Mr. Raghu provided sponsorship services to Win Cricket Academy and LLP. So if sponsorship services are given by any person to a body, corporate or a partnership firm including LLP, that partnership firm or LLP has to pay the tax under reverse charge. So here Win Cricket will give this pay tax under reverse charge. Safe Trans, a GTA, transported goods of Kapil and Company, a partnership firm not registered under GST law. Kapil and Company only has to pay the taxes under reverse charge because it is included in that 7 notified persons. Under GST law, taxable services supplied by central government or state government to a business entity is in India are payable by the recipient of such services. State its exceptions. So normally services given by government to government to business entity, then the business entity has to pay the taxes. Now they have asked if there is any exception for this. Are there any exceptions? Yes, there is an exception. What is that exception? Gap. In case of transportation of goods, services in relation to aircraft and vessel, P for what is this? P for Department of Post and Transportation of Passengers. These are the exception. And this completes our discussion of this beautiful topic called as what, sir? Charge under GST law. Very nice and simple topic. There are two important amendments which have been made under this in this chapter. So please make sure that you properly concentrate and study those topic. And yeah, in our next class we are going to discuss about exemptions. So let us meet in our next class. Till then, tada, bye bye, take care.